A solid understanding of good studio practice is critical to consistent success in working with glass in a kiln. But even the best knowledge of theory and method will not make up for using a poor material. As kiln glass becomes more and more popular, an increasing number of types of glass are appearing on the market. The options may seem overwhelming. So how does a beginner decide which glass to use? To start, we suggest that you ask the advice of friends or instructors who already work in the method. Whether you know other kiln workers or not, this lesson will suggest some of the criteria to consider as you investigate your choices. The material properties of the glass will likely be what you will investigate first. But you should also look into the technical and professional support available for the glass you select, and the availability of the glass in your area, and the performance history of any specific brand, and finally, of course, the cost. To start, let's look at the material properties you will want in a glass that you intend to fire in a kiln. If you expect to melt different colors or types of glass together in your firings, the most important property is compatibility. For kiln-forming purposes, glasses are said to be compatible when, after being melted together, they do not break on cooling, or contain so much stress that they will be likely to break days, weeks, or even months later. Compatibility is the single most essential characteristic necessary for a glass used in kiln forming. But be careful. Probably the most widespread misunderstanding in the field of kiln glass today is the myth that glasses with the same coefficient of expansion, or COE, will be compatible. Compatibility is not determined by matching COEs, but by factory testing that measures the amount of stress existing between different glasses. That stress relates to a variety of factors, of which COE is only one. Because compatibility is such an important issue and is so basic to working with glass in a kiln, we will cover it in a separate and more extensive lesson where we will explain exactly what COE is and how it relates to compatibility. Until you truly understand compatibility and how it is determined, you will be safest to select glasses made by a single factory that are tested, labeled, and guaranteed by that factory to be compatible with other glasses from the same source. After basic compatibility, you will want to be sure that the glass you use is stable on multiple firings. Certain glasses can become incompatible when fired more than once. Ideally, the glass you use in the kiln should be able to be fired at least 3 times. For example, once to create a pattern element, a second time when the pattern piece is fused into a blank, and a third time when that blank is slumped into a 3-dimensional form. Find out whether the manufacturer of the glass you are using tests for multiple firings. If they do not, you should perform triple fire tests yourself before starting any important projects. In addition to being compatible, the best glasses for use in the kiln are those that are not prone to devitrify or become scummy when fired. Devitrification is the process of a glass becoming unglass-like. Instead of the shiny quality that we associate with glass, devitrified glass has developed a hazy, sometimes even crusty surface. This is an indication that its chemical composition has begun to more closely resemble a ceramic body. Devitrified glass will be more difficult to cut and, if extreme, will become incompatible. Devitrification is more common on multiple firings, and it is very common on float glass, often referred to as window glass. Be sure not to mistake devitrification caused by poorly cleaned glass for a glass whose chemical composition makes it prone to devit. The results may look similar, but a devit-prone glass, no matter how clean, will still yield a hazy surface when fired. Speaking of cleanliness, It is only good studio practice to clean your glass well and thoroughly before firing. But be careful that the glass you use does not contain excessive internal contaminants. Handmade glass often contains some inclusions, but they should be minimal. Some contaminants may be invisible before firing, but then show up later in the form of dark specks or streaks in the fired glass. Inspect glass closely before firing, and choose a glass that has as little contamination as possible, either on its surface, internally, or mixed within its fritted form. There is no surface texture that is truly ideal in a sheet glass used for kiln forming. Different surface textures will create differences in bubble population in fused glass bodies. One might assume that a smoother surface will trap fewer air bubbles. This is not necessarily true. Air bubbles can be minimized when firing smooth or relatively smooth sheets of glass together, but in standard practice they cannot be completely eliminated. You can, however, predict the pattern of bubbles that will be trapped based on a sheet's surface texture. A slightly rough and uniform surface texture will typically yield a pattern of tiny internal bubbles called seeds, or sometimes champagne bubbles. A smoother surface will often yield internal bubbles that are less regular, more elongated, and larger. Select a glass that provides the bubble patterning you desire based on observations of your own tests. If having the widest possible color palette is important to your work, you will want to compare the color offerings available from different glass factories. We do not recommend comparing the combined offerings of various manufacturers claiming to share a common COE, for reasons already mentioned. You risk failure unless you are prepared to perform additional compatibility testing within your own studio. Besides colors, compare the variety of forms of glasses available from a single source. Can you get frits, powders, threads, rods, billets, and other types of glass that will allow the broadest flexibility for your design purposes? Also, you may want to consider whether a colored glass factory develops new and leading-edge colors on a regular basis. Color is a major and fluctuating factor in design. Because color palettes in fashion and furnishings change frequently, you may want to choose glasses offered by a factory that updates its production to stay at the leading, rather than trailing, edge of color development. Glass, like ceramic tile, fabric, wallpaper, or other manufactured color products, can have variations from one lot to the next. The range of color variation that a glass manufacturer allows within its standard production will be important to you if you are making a product line over time, or if you will need to match color from different lots. Besides selecting a glass line in which the individual colors are relatively consistent between lots, be sure to compare the consistency of colors after firing. Does the manufacturer control this aspect in its quality assurance program? Does the manufacturer mark its glass by production date so that you can be sure of matching colors where the ranges may be wider than average? A good separator, whether primer or paper, is critical to achieving a clean surface on the shelf side of your fused project. Taking care not to overfire the glass will also help to avoid the gritty residue that can cling to the glass. But certain glasses will, by their very formulation, be very sticky and prone to bonding with separators with extended heat work. If you intend to make works that require long soaks at high temperatures, you will want to select glasses known to release easily. The final material quality is not truly a material property itself, but a summary over time of the characteristics just discussed. It is the reputation within the marketplace that is earned by any glass after years of regular and widespread use. Use by established artists who have worked with the material over decades and have been instrumental in its development. New entries into the marketplace can be cheap, but the losses resulting from untested glass can be costly. Knowing and assessing the material properties of a kiln glass is important as you get started in the medium. But success is a combination of good material and reliable user support. User support should include regularly published technical information that is based on rigorous studio research and frequent interaction with practicing artists, and that is available readily online and off. This user support should also include well-designed classes, built around accurate theoretical and practical information that are available at the factory and through local resource centers and privately owned professional studios. Other educational opportunities should include activities like conferences and factory-supported residencies where you can continue to grow your skills and your community. You may also want to work with a company that encourages your professional development through activities like competitions that foster artistic and technical growth and the chance to promote your work through exhibition and publication, and possibly even representation in a gallery or at art fairs nationally and internationally. While these activities may seem far removed from simply choosing a glass, you may want to consider them as you develop your craft and your art. On the purely practical level, you will want to consider how available the glass is. Is it carried by a dealer or specialist studio in your region? Can you buy it easily through an online store? Finally, you will need to consider what value you place on the material and support you will need to work successfully in kiln-formed glass. While cost is often our first consideration in any purchasing choice, it needs to be weighed against value. The value of your time and the chances of your success need to be calculated when considering the cost of your glass. In the end, choosing a glass is part of a larger process. Kiln forming is a method in its infancy. New materials and new methods are being developed continually. Stay at the front of the field by starting with a glass that meets all your material, technical, and professional needs, and also lets you dream big.